whenever you go. Oh, thank you again. We'll go now, so I'll start looking up. Yep, I'm ready. Go ahead. Whenever gets a bit healthy, we'll get a play. We want to get enough. Oh, I've got all that. We're all 10.
I have a very few, but it seems absolutely 30 seconds left. Now, Saturday, who is challenging an exclusion order, and Mr. Adams didn't check that out.
We've got journalists in Belfast. I mean, if you want to talk to them, contradict, let's assume they're part of the discussion, the audience here.
The colours on the left in this picture, is it? Yeah, thank you.
This is my spot for Ulster, isn't it? But it's okay. Pack it in now, you lot. Morning, Ivan. Morning, Ken. Nice to see you. Hello and good morning. Yesterday, the government banned all British television and radio stations from broadcasting interviews with members of Sinn Féin or their supporters. But will it reduce terrorism or merely curb press freedom?
It's the past year of I.R.A. bombing and killing that persuaded the government this summer to look at the whole of its policy for dealing with terrorism and its supporters in Northern Ireland. Ministers and many MPs have been incensed by the way people like Sinn Féin President Gerry have appeared on television and radio after such attacks, sometimes to justify them, sometimes to make their apologies. In the past, Mrs. Thatcher thought that moral pressure on the broadcasters would be enough to stop such appearances. Now the Prime Minister thinks that as Ulster terrorism has continued and increased, so have the obligations on broadcasters.
The bodies of I.R.A. men Eddie McSheffrey and Paddy Deary were borne into St Eugene's Cathedral for Requiem Mass in defiance of Bishop Edward Daly's ban.
It was a standoff situation the I.R.A. quickly exploited, smuggling a gunman among the mourners to fire shots over the coffins. The RUC said they'd be reviewing their policy on terrorist funerals. The I.R.A., they said, had shown no regard for reverence, dignity or civilised human behaviour.
What had been a family day out turned to horror as a bomb exploded in a Catholic community centre. The building collapsed like a pack of cards on top of a group of 40 or 50 people.
Get down! Get down! Get down! Everybody get down!
This cycle of violence, either caused by the I.R.A. or often provoked by them, causing frustration among other extremist groups, which leads to killing and counter-killing, shows the vicious awfulness of a group who have no mandate, who have no authority, and know nothing but violence.
When you've had a bomb outrage, and there are pictures of bodies in distress and weeping relatives. And the next thing that happens on the screen, in people's living room, therefore, is somebody saying, well, you know, I support the armed struggle, or they deserved it. Whether it's loyalist or whether it's I.R.A., that, I think, is not only offensive, but it's wrong, and it's perfectly reasonable to remove that.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Prime Minister will say a few words and then we'll take questions for about half an hour. Prime Minister.
I'd like to ask you a kind of double-barreled question.
Oh, dear.
Firstly,
Margaret Thatcher had said terrorists should not be getting the oxygen of publicity. Thatcher wanted to be seen to do something. Don't forget the I.R.A. tried to kill her after the Brighton bombing. So you could understand when she said, look, I don't want to watch these guys in my living room. They tried to kill me and they did kill some of my friends.
After the bombing that the I.R.A. said Mrs Thatcher must now realise that Britain couldn't occupy their country, torture their prisoners and shoot their people and get away with it. The Provost said they'd been unlucky with their bombing today, but added they only had to be lucky once. Mrs Thatcher and her colleagues had to be lucky always.
There can be no compromise with terrorism. Treating with terrorists can only lead to more bombings, more violence, more people murdered. The best defense against terrorism is to make clear that you will never give in.
That particular Tory government had 4 major blazing rows over its coverage with the BBC. So there was this hostility between the government and the broadcasters.
In our societies, we don't believe in constraining the media, still less in censorship. But ought we not to ask the media to agree among themselves a voluntary code of conduct?
I don't think anyone actually expected the British law to be as severe as it was. I got phoned by the news desk in London. I said, oh my God. Charged into the office and started phoning as many people as I could. And it came out very quickly that the next day, the British government were going to bring in these broadcasting restrictions. You could still interview them. You could go to their news conferences, you could record it, but you just could not broadcast the sound of the voice. I don't know who it was, but word came down that, yeah, you're to use actors. Tell somebody, find me an actor, you know, ridiculous.
My agent called me one day and said, could you get down to the BBC as soon as possible? You've got to go to the newsroom. The journalists, they were all stunned at what had happened. All that was known was they had to take the voice off. Then we recorded the voice onto a microphone, and they took that recording, they sat it on to the voice, and then it appeared on TV. It was really, really surreal.
Affected by the ban in Northern Ireland will be more than 60 Sinn Féin councillors and 1 MP, the party leader, Gerry Adams, who's also one of its best-known figures.
In what may be his last British television interview, Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams urged broadcasters to point up their exclusion in future by using a South African-type introduction that this report has been compiled under government restrictions.
Mr. Adams, this must be no surprise to you, this proposed ban on you, because you are perceived by 80% of the population of Northern Ireland as the excusers of murderers, of people operating a guerrilla campaign in a normal society and trying to destroy that normal society.
Well, I said earlier on, we have certain opinions, which include our belief that the I.R.A. have a legitimate right to use armed struggle. Now, that's our opinion. We have the right to that opinion, in the same way as others may have totally opposite opinions, and they have the right to those opinions as well. What has been banned here is our right to give that opinion.
Okay.
How you all doing?
Yeah. Don't be crowding around us.
I won't.
I'm one apple room.
Hey, son. You well, son? Not so bad. How are you?
To this day, I bump into people. I'd maybe be wearing a cap or trying not to make eye contact, and then they'd hear me talking, and they'd immediately know it was me.
Can you fill us in on what exactly you've been doing in the background, or what's been going on?
It's not for me to say that my voice is particularly distinctive or not. It's the only voice that I have. I'm optimistic because I come at this from a Republican perspective. We have been coming at these issues for almost a decade now, of trying to get these core issues up on the political agenda.
So this year we managed, through a series of initiatives and through just undenting hard work and through the resilience of the Republican struggle, to put these core issues and to focus the British government on those issues.
Well, a lot of people thought it was a great improvement, you know, on my monotone. People would bring it to your attention that there was a particularly funny, you know, or somebody, you know, somebody with a squeaky voice, or clearly not me for those who may have known me.
Well, it falls upon me to introduce this education course. I'm very pleased to do so. There's been a lot of good work has been put into preparing for all Republican activists.
The whole history of Anglo involvement in Irish affairs is steeped in propaganda and in demonisation and vilification, because you can't go about the job of dealing with people as commodities. You have to dehumanise them, you have to demonise them to get away with that.
Sinn Féin have so far denied they are backing the campaign. Earlier today, I spoke to their deputy leader, Rory O'Connor, who under broadcasting restrictions must inhale helium to subtract credibility from his statements.
So you do support this campaign of violence?
Sinn Féin is a legitimate political party.
Which supports terrorist action.
Your tone is antagonistic and you're making me very angry.
Just for a moment, and finally, for the average punter on the streets, is there not a danger that taking these sort of measures in the way that the Home Secretary seems to be taking them, the law itself will be left looking something of an ass?
The law may be looking like a highly intelligent creature, disgustingly confused.
As actors, you're always looking for work. And this paid £60 a pop. It was party time. You can't deny it. Then it became more and more competitive. So I ended up getting a pager. And the guy said to me behind the counter, "Are you a fireman?" I said, "I'm an actor. I'm an actor. I do the broadcasting function. I need this so that my agent can get me and I can beat the rest of them." The various actors would do anything. I remember one of my friends, Tim Lone, he got an answer machine.
Within a week it had paid for itself, I think. It started off an occasional thing, then it really built, it really did snowball. There were times when you would be in and out of the BBC for 4 or 5 times a day sometimes.
Working with the actors were the most enormous pain in the backside. They were awful.
We operated like a kind of a flying squad. Whoever was available was next in there to do the different voices.
I'd been asked, would you come into a studio and revoice Gerry Adams? The idea was to speak with as much clarity as possible so that the words that he was saying would get through to an audience. And I left out little fluffs. I didn't repeat mistakes because he was talking off the cuff. What was I going to do? Say to her, "Oh, get Kenneth Branagh to do it."
What they objected to was these guys looking reasonable. These guys looking normal. Because if you're going to demonize terrorists, they can't be working class guys who can actually express themselves really well and are quick in debate.
I think the voice of Gerry Adams, they wanted to take it away. These figures were hugely charismatic.
I don't think there's any doubt that they perceived Adams's words as dangerous. I don't think he's a particularly great orator, but he's charismatic. And by trying to take away his voice, I presume they were trying to kill some of his charisma.
There was a turning point in the broadcasting ban when word came from above that the dubbing was too good. And I remember the journalists themselves were sitting going, what? So we have to do it bad?
If you ever managed to time your words too perfectly with the visual image, they would tell you to go back and do it again and mess it up on purpose. You would have people, friends or relatives telling you, how come you can't fit the words to the pictures better? We weren't allowed.
The first thing they did originally was bring in actors to dub over my voice or Gerry Adams's voice. I think there was one occasion where the documentary was made about the prisoners in the H blocks of Long Kesh. And there was a scene when the spokesperson for the prisoners was debating about sausage rolls. And because the person was speaking from a Republican spokesperson position, they were banned. That was dubbed over.
Here, the prison's catering officers are discussing a problem with the I.R.A. spokesman on food.
The thing about the sausage rolls, they're getting smaller in terms of size and all that there, you know. The quality's still all right. Quality's nothing probably just getting a bit small. They're getting a bit small, you know. Appetite's a bit better. Getting a bit better.
I mean, it was farcical. Being the National Director of Publicity for Sinn Féin, we weren't surprised by anything that Margaret Thatcher would do. In the Republican Press Centre, in the 4 months prior to the broadcasting ban, we had about 500 requests generated for interviews, and I think that dropped to about 110 in the 4 months afterwards. So it had a real effect, but it didn't stop the I.R.A.
Do you think there are other things we should have done? Do you think, is the banning enough, or should we have done more?
It's not enough, it's just a drop in the ocean. Because there are criminals, terrorists on the streets. Hold on, I live there.
You're wrong. People there,
Sinn Féin was asked to stand for election. It proved that it had got the support and the goalposts were moved.
Hang on now, come on. Everybody's going to get their fair share.
Entered into talks with Gerry Adams, a man whose hands are stained with the blood of decent people in Northern Ireland.
I'd just like to make one point.
His means of achieving the end. His means of
Sinn Féin need to be eliminated.
When the broadcasting ban was brought in, I hear people say, this is like the Soviet Union. What was different about the broadcasting ban here is that we are Western Europeans. There's no censorship, unlike other places. And of course, we were fooling ourselves. I can't remember a journalist coming out in the north and saying, this is a good idea, keep the bastards off the air. Not one.
At this time, Sinn Féin were getting 10 to 15% of the vote in Northern Ireland. They had MPs. And it was just not right. Once you're an elected representative, things change.
What they did was make the media part of the state's arsenal against the people who were rising up against the state. When I got to go to the USA, a lot of the media interest was in listening to this person whose voice was banned from the airwaves. Just shows you how counterproductive it is, because had I not had these measures in place, sure, it wouldn't have been a story.
You know, the ban, it did Gerry Adams no harm. Helped him to cover up the truth when he didn't want to be interviewed about the truth. Go to America or Europe or anywhere else and say that they're silencing us. That's a very simple thing to say to audiences. Then he might know nothing at all about the North. They understood that. There's never been a mistake to be made in Northern Ireland that the British haven't taken the chance to do it.
It was also an attack on the British public, because it was an attempt to keep them ignorant about why their sons and daughters were getting killed in Ireland, why there was a conflict going on here.
It was callous, the censorship, and it stopped dialogue. They thought, that'll teach these sons of bitches.
Good evening. You're watching UTV Live at 6 on Wednesday, August the 31st. After 25 years of violence and over 3,000 deaths, the I.R.A. has declared what is regarded as its most significant ceasefire yet. It will be a complete cessation of military operations, and all units have been instructed accordingly. It takes place from midnight tonight.
The noisy cavalcade winds its way down the falls and into the Nationalist New Lodge and Ardoyne districts. The relief of people who crowded out of their houses to watch was palpable.
Just absolutely delighted, and we'll continue to pray that the peace will last, not only for ourselves but for our non-Catholic friends as well.
I remember getting a phone call 24 hours in advance to say, be on standby. Can you get into the BBC at 7 o'clock in the morning?
Dennis Murray was going, this is huge, get in here quick.
And there was half a dozen of us, all actors, all who knew each other very well, sitting there drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes all day.
You had to fight your way through the Marlborough smoke. Absolutely sensational atmosphere.
I did Martin McGuinness for the Today programme on Radio 4. The reason I remembered is because my mother and father were on holidays and they heard my voice on the World Service telling them about the ceasefire.
I went in and did the voice, Danny Morrison, I think it was, and then said, bye, see you later, went out. That was it. We're never back.
So after 6 years, the broadcasting ban brought in by Margaret Thatcher to cut off the oxygen of publicity has finally been lifted. Reaction has been positive. Even the Ulster Unionist Party said it was a joke.
All paramilitaries and all those who speak on their behalf now have an opportunity. The opportunity to tell us directly, not under the cover of an actor's voice, that they are truly committed to peaceful methods only and to there being no resumption of violence in the future.
Well, we're now able to do our first interview with a member of Sinn Féin without using an actor's voice. And in our Derry studio, Martin McGuinness. Mr. McGuinness, we haven't actually heard you speak for the last 6 years. I wonder if you could use this opportunity to satisfy the Prime Minister, who's in Northern Ireland, that the I.R.A. ceasefire is permanent.
Well, the position is that Sinn Féin is not the I.R.A. I cannot reinterpret the I.R.A. statement. The I.R.A. statement, in my opinion, is very clear.
What is your understanding of the I.R.A.? Is your understanding of the I.R.A. statement, then, that it is permanent?
Well, it's my understanding of the I.R.A. statement in that they have totally transformed the situation on this island. And I think that the British government have to recognise that. I think that there has been widespread acclaim for that. And it's quite clear that the British government now have moved to end this ban as a result of the public criticism which they had over their begrudging attitude towards it.
Sinn Féin has welcomed the ending of the broadcasting ban. The party said it should never have been imposed in the first place. The organisation claimed the I.R.A. ceasefire had provided a golden opportunity to dramatically advance the peace process.
I'm can't talk at once. Peter, what about your experience as a panorama reporter? You've covered a great deal of events in Northern Ireland.
I think what's going to happen is that at the first electoral opportunity, Sinn Féin will jump on the bandwagon. The media from all over the world will be there. They'll be interested not in the by-election, they'll be interested in Sinn Féin. Gerry Adams, Danny Morrison and everybody else will be interviewed at great length, and Sinn Féin will get the oxygen of publicity, which this whole operation is designed to deny them. It will be counterproductive. I don't think it will work.
It will have to be balanced. Somebody has to draw the line, and this morning the line is drawn here.